Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fadwa Wazwaz, and I am doing a presentation, as I had said, on the ego versus faith. Now, I have done like a small little clip on egoism versus between egoism and conformity. This is really meant to be the transition point from my first book, which is God Intervenes Between a Person and Their Heart, into the second book, which is Love is Deeper Than Words. And I ended with the presentation on praise belongs to God alone. And I touched on trauma there, but I also have touched on pain and suffering and trauma throughout my writings. I just stopped at that particular point. I used several scholars' commentary, but I focused heavily on Ratib al-Nabilsi, and gave a case in point my mother, may Allah have mercy on her soul, who passed away in 2019. The coming book, I will continue down the praise belongs to God alone, and I will expand on it using teachings of Ramadan al-Bhuti as well as Sheikh Sharaawy. I was listening to Sheikh Sharaawy in his, in commentary on Al-Fatiha, so I like to give credit where credit is due. I don't like people who plagiarize and promote themselves with other people's ideas. And from there, I can like give my own reflection and people can separate. That way, if people read something I wrote, they would know where to go, who's the source. And, part of like, if you're interested in presenting an argument, you want to also present the sources of your argument. One of the things that the Sheikh Sharaawy said is that the Quran is a miracle and God took it upon himself to guard it. So I always like push the understanding of turning to the Quran. He did not leave it for people to guard the Quran. So it will be guarded by God. That doesn't mean we don't show it the respect and we don't treat it as the word of God. It's not a regular book like any other book. So it has its own, you might say, station of respect. He mentioned something very important. This is Sheikh Sharaawy, that I felt it's very, very insightful to raise. We do not, he said, interpret the Quran. Like, we don't know its full meanings. Anyone who claims to know the full internal meanings of the Quran is not being honest. Rather, we surround the Quran with our thoughts. Like, we turn to the Quran, with our thoughts, with our life experiences, in the hope that the light and the secrets of the Quran are absorbed in our hearts. So every person, they come into the Quran, with their life experiences, and they come to the Quran seeking, like I mentioned many times, seeking guidance. You want to turn to the Quran with a station of respect that it must be held. If the Quran can be just, interpreted by anybody, and everybody knows its full secrets, then the Prophet Muhammad, upon him peace and blessings, would have left the Quran with an official scholarly commentary to share with the rest of creation. Obviously, nobody knows the Quran more than Prophet Muhammad, and nobody is as beloved to God, or you could say also of pure of heart, as Prophet Muhammad, upon him peace and blessings. This is again Sheikh Sharaawy over here. Prophet Muhammad, upon him peace and blessings, was honest and trustworthy to the extent that the message he received and the rulings are agreed upon in each generation. So he just transmitted the message. It didn't mean that he didn't comment on it with their lived experiences and their lives. However, the secrets of the Quran will be revealed when the birth of these realities are giving birth amongst mankind. So that means things like I talk about the rulings, those go to the jurists, and these remain the same. For example, fornication is a sin. It was a sin during Prophet Muhammad's time. It's a sin now. Murder is a sin. It was a sin during Prophet Muhammad's time. It's a sin throughout generation, throughout places, wherever you're at, it's a sin now. So these rulings that are agreed upon They're agreed upon like in each generation. You can't like change a consensus point that was agreed upon. But the secrets of the Quran, sometimes their realities will be given birth in different times and different places. And the secrets, when you turn to God, you know, to the Quran, then those secrets start to be absorbed into your heart, and the light of the Quran is absorbed into your heart. And God told us, and this is again an important part, to seek refuge from Satan when reading the Quran. He wanted us to purify our heart and mind from any falsehood. Because what does Satan do? He puts whispers, you know, he puts thoughts into your mind. And so he pollutes, if you will, your heart. And this is why I mentioned in the reflections on healing post that you want to make sure that you don't absorb what's outside, because faith does not absorb what's outside. Faith absorbs from the Quran. It does not absorb, you know, the heart of a person of faith. It absorbs from the Quran. It does not absorb from people around them, because not everybody is following, you know, faith, the call to faith. So to absorb people around you, then you're going to be following the crowd. You're not going to be following what the Quran is inspiring you, what the Quran is teaching you, or what the Quran is like prohibiting or making permissible. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So he mentioned, and I focused in the last presentation on the names of God, and I used the hadith by Prophet Muhammad, upon him peace and blessings, where it said to make, you know, the Quran the light of my heart. And in that particular hadith that I had mentioned, if I could just read it, this will kind of help to transition from that video to here. And it says, wait, I apologize. I opened it up and then it went ahead. Okay. Oh Allah, I am your slave, you know, child of your male servant, child of your female servant. My forelock is in your hand. Your command for me prevails. Your judgment concerning me is just. You've accepted God as Lord of the universe. But usually what happens, like whenever you're in a trial and tribulation, if you've accepted your humanity and you're not claiming lies and falsehoods, then a trial and tribulation is going to agitate you. You know, we haven't reached, any of us, a station of prophethood. So if you're going to claim, like, you know, you're always like saying the right thing and doing the right thing, then, you know, I have issues with you. I don't like to associate with you. But, you know, if your judgment concerning me is just. Now, naturally, when a trial comes, it's going to shake you. It's meant to shake you, you know. And when you say that, if you find yourself resistant to that statement, that means it's a healthy, okay, your judgment, you're not like, as long as you're not debating it, you know. But if you find like saying it is hard, that's still good. It means it's purifying what's inside. Now, I mentioned in the reflections of healing, I said that you know, the darkness within, you know, has to be emptied out before the light of faith is absorbed. And so by saying these statements, what you're literally doing, you know how you go like through a health detoxification program, or, you know, like they say you have to first detoxify your colon or detoxify, you know, this. So these statements kind of, if you will, I see it as they help to like detoxify or purify what's inside of you that's there, because it's gonna agitate. Once you say this and you're in a trial, remember, like in restorative justice, when we were talking about it, if you tell someone something and they're in a trial, they're going to become very, very agitated. Now, if you're turning to God and you're saying it to God, there's going to be thoughts that are going to come out, feelings that are going to come out, things inside of you that are going to come out. And what's important is the next statement, it takes you at the names of God. So as those things come out, you know, just like the trial with Satan, what his reality came out, you know, what's inside of him came out, you know, and it was blame and projection. Now, as long as you don't, you know, turn the way Satan turned to God, but try to mention the names of God, the names of God, the names of God, you know, and try to like look at your trial. What is it that you need? If you need protection, reference the names of God that deal with protection. If you need kindness, if you need mercy, if you need love, turn to the names of God that reference those realities and that help you with that need. This helps you not project what's coming out of you onto God, because that's what happened with Satan. Like what came out of him, then he went ahead and projected it and blamed it on God. So the trial is going to shake you. It's meant to shake you, but the purpose of that shaking is not to cause you pain just so that you can be in pain or make you suffer. It's meant to give you a gift, so move what's inside of you out so that you can receive a beautiful gift from God. So the judgment concerning me is just. You're not saying now why, you're just saying your judgment concerning me is just. That's going to be shaking you. You're not going to be like feeling it. You're not going to be like in harmony with it. There are going to be thoughts that are raging in your mind. Things are inside of you that are going to start to come out, and let them come out and deal with them coming out by focusing, instead of saying you God are this or you God are that, focus on the names of God. By recognizing what's coming out of you and recognizing the names of God, you are literally separating who you are, because unless you know yourself, you cannot know another. You're separating who you are from who God is. So you need to create that separation so that we don't project our reality onto God. And that's usually how it happens. So the trial brings out what's inside of you. If you saw my video on Christopher Hitchens, I think. I apologize. I forget names sometimes. I think it's Christopher Hitchens. I have to check. But again, it's that separation point. What's inside of you comes out, immediately respond to what's coming out with the names, attributes of God. Why? So that you know who you are. That's coming out of you. That's you. And this is who God is. These are the names of God. Try to learn the names of God. Now here I'm referring, this is not from Sheikh Sharaawy, just so that you don't end up, in case there's errors, you don't end up attributing it to him. And then the hadith mentions to make the Qur'an the springtime of my heart, the light of my chest, the remover of my sadness, and the pacifier of my worries. So I just wanted to share a small, if I can, clip by Sheikh Sharaawy that is an excellent way of explaining this beautiful point. It's in Arabic, and then I will discuss it. So just give me 1 second. Okay, here it is.
كان المنطق يقول ايه؟ الرحمن خلق الانسان وبعدين علمه القران. قال لك لا، ده ما يمتنش بخلق الانسان ده بدون منهج ابدا. لان لو كان الانسان هيبقى بدون منهج كانت هتبقى حكايه فاسده وكل واحد يعمل ما اللي هواه فيه. وحين يصنع كل انسان ما فيه هواه تفسد حركه الكون. ولذلك اذا استقرات القران وجدت كل خبر عن الانسان من جنس الشر الا ان يجيء الاستثناء بالايمان. والعصر ان الانسان بانعزال انسانيته عن المنهج يبقى ايه؟ في خسر. امال مين اللي ينجو؟ الا الذين امنوا. اذا الانسان بدون منهج تبقى كلها ايه؟ ان الانسان خلق هلوعا اذا مسه الشر جزوعا واذا مسه الخير الا. يبقى اذا لولا وجوده الا دي كان يبقى الخبر عن الانسان ده. اذا فالانسان بدون منهج قيمي يبقى كل الكلام عنه شر. ولذلك والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الامين لقد خلقنا الانسان في احسن ثم رددناه الا الذين امنوا. ايه اللي ينجيني من اسفل سافلين؟ الا دي. يبقى اذا الله لا يمتن بالخلق لخلق الانسان، لا يمتن اولا بانه الرحمن علم القران. يعني لو كان خلق الانسان ده بدون تعليم القران وبدون منهج كانت ما تبقاش يبقى اذا هذا هو.
And so the Sheikh, beautiful again, saying that he mentions about that, how the chapter of Ar-Rahman begins with that the Most Merciful, taught the Qur'an, and that if without the Qur'an, that all the sayings, like if we look into the Quran, actually, all the descriptions of what human beings do and what human beings, how they act and how they respond and how they feel. And in fact, I gave in the Chernobyl incident in my first book, that when they moved human beings, from a dead man zone, that everything started to flourish, life, animals, everything started to flourish. So he emphasizes also that most of the commentary in the Quran about human beings is evil, is them doing evil. This is not just a particular group. The way the Quran is written, it's referring to, it says in various parts that they engage in evil, they engage in murder, they engage in theft, they engage in, all sorts of evil. So it talks about that, except, and this is where the separation point is, those who accepted the call of faith. So without the call of faith, that we all follow our ego and we all do evil. And so he mentioned that throughout. It's a beautiful commentary, so I'll put the entire video there, and I would encourage you to listen to it. It does take a few listening sessions, but it is very well done, I think. But he says that the names of the chapter of every book begins with the exception of one, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The reason being is that most of human beings, the God emphasizes those two names out of all of his names because most of us are ungrateful. It's not just a select few. And most of us, we do oppression. It isn't just a select few. And the way we speak about oppression now, it's as though some people do oppression and some people do not. But the way the Quran, brings it out is that humanity at large engages in oppression because before the call of faith came, and I mentioned that in the first book, and Adam came, what separated Adam from the rest of creation, the ones that were, removed from the earth by the angels and by the progeny of jinn, if you will, when they were removed from the earth, what separated Adam was the divine breath. And he responded to that divine breath with Alhamdulillah. And so the Shaykh, in fact, talks about an interpretation of Alhamdulillah. And I will expand on that in the book, but that is the source of where I will get that this time. But the secret of these names is they repel the thoughts coming from Satan. So you're in a trial. You have Satan now going to be putting thoughts at you. You have humanity going to be putting thoughts at you. And then you have what's inside of you coming out of you that's going to be a cause of chaos. Of how do you deal with it? By reflecting on the names of God over and over again, it helps you to first not get into the state of where you project all of these, things that are you're hearing, internal, external, onto God. So you keep God at the station of awe. And by reflecting on his names, you're reflecting on who he is. Don't ask God to human-splain anything for you. Keep him at his station. By reflecting on his names, you're keeping God at his station. And when we engage in this action, We also recognize any good that we do, by, again, with the names Ar-Rahman, Rahim, comes not by our strength or power, but rather by his mercy and his name. Now, some will say, well, people do good and they don't say Bismillah. When non-Muslims engage in work successfully without saying Bismillah, their benefit and their reward is in the lower world. But as a Muslim person, or somebody who's accepting the call of faith, you're not just seeking the reward in the lower world, or the dunya as they call it. You're seeking it in the higher world. And here you are acknowledging that it was by God, by doing so, that it was by God and with God that you're able to do this work and action. So this is again from the ego to the call of faith, because if you take credit for it, if you're saying, well, I did this because I am generous and I am good and I am kind, you will get probably the reward of praise and everything in this world. But when it comes to the hereafter, you didn't really do it in the name of Bismillah. You didn't do it in the name of God. You didn't do it by God or with God. You just did it for your ego, and the end of the ego is right here. It's in the lower world. So when you get to the hereafter, the light that you need to be able to continue and to proceed, if you will, to move forward on the bridge in the hereafter, you will not have that light, because you didn't do anything in the name of God, and you didn't do it for God, and you didn't do it acknowledging that your ability to do good is by God. So that light, that internal light, you will not be able to have within you that will help you to cross that bridge.